May the words of my mouth and the meditations of all of our hearts be pleasing to you, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. For years, Christians talked about earth as a vale of tears or a valley of sorrow. This difficult place we have to struggle through and work our way through as we suffer and cry and as death surrounds us until we get to heaven and to God. And there is some truth to that, right? Sometimes this earth is a vale of tears. Sometimes it feels as if we are living in a valley of death and sorrow, and we are struggling alone. But this image of us on one side and God and comfort and joy on the other side is not really entirely biblical or entirely what our faith teaches. In fact, our faith gives us the image of a God who comes to be with us, who wipes away our tears, who is in solidarity with us as we struggle. Our beautiful reading from Revelations puts it this way: the home of God is among mortals. He will dwell with them, they will be his peoples, and God himself will be with them. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. And in the story of Lazarus, we have a beautiful image of Christ embodying this kind of God, the God who comes to dwell with us. I think it's such a beautiful story because Jesus, being Jesus, could have shown up and just resurrected Lazarus right there. But instead, he takes a moment and he weeps. He weeps with Lazarus's family, with his friends, with the mourners. It says that he was deeply disturbed, that he was deeply moved. He takes his time to be with his people and to weep with them. That is the image we have of who our God is, a God who dwells and makes God's home among mortals. It's also interesting. Apparently, I don't read Greek, unfortunately, but my friends who do tells me that the Greek, where it says that Jesus is greatly disturbed, it implies a sort of anger. And why do we have Jesus being angry here? My theory, and this is just my theory, so you take it or leave it as you wish, but my theory is that Jesus has such a deep understanding of what God intends for humanity, of what God longs for humanity, that he understands more deeply than even we can that death is not the end, that death is not what we were meant for, that sorrow, that injustice, that suffering is not what God intended. And so he is deeply disturbed at this sorrow. He is deeply disturbed at death. I think Jesus can see so clearly with God's vision that is cast in Isaiah that he is disturbed that this is not happening on earth just yet. In Isaiah, we have this beautiful image of a feast, it says, for all peoples, coming together at God's table, people from all nations, from all nationalities, across their differences, different languages, different skin colors, different understandings, coming together and being nourished and having their needs met by God. God again wipes away the tears from all faces in Isaiah. God again comes and dwells with us and sorrows with us and takes our sorrow away. But of course, Jesus doesn't just weep. He actually raises Lazarus from the dead. He brings life out of death, as God is in the business of doing even here on earth. So today is All Saints' Day, and we remember those who have died, those who have moved on to be with God in a way that we can't even quite imagine just yet. And we affirm that they are held in God's arms. And that's an important part of All Saints. But another part of All Saints is recognizing our own sainthood, recognizing that we are called to be saints today, in the here and now. Like Jesus, we are meant to hold on to this image in Isaiah, this vision of God's world in Isaiah. And we are meant to follow in Jesus' footsteps and seek to make this a reality. Because as much as this is in the future tense, this is also what God intends for us to have now and to seek to create in the here and now. Luther talked about us as being simultaneously sinners and saints. On the one hand, we never quite live up to the image of God that is in us. We never quite live up to seeking out life and resurrection in those places where death seems to reign. And yet, we are also redeemed by God, loved by God, and the image of God is never fully tarnished in us. And so we can live out of our sainthood. We can walk in the footsteps of Christ, and we're probably not going to raise anyone from the dead, but we can bring life out of places that seem hopelessly dead. With God's power in us, with God walking alongside us, we can bring resurrection. We can make some of what we see here in Isaiah true in our hearts, in our homes, in our world. There's also another beautiful image in Lazarus. Well, a strange image, really. Lazarus is raised from the dead, but he comes out in his grave clothes. So he's still all bound up. How often is that true of us and our world? We might experience resurrection. God might have called us to life. We might be beginning to feel some of that life, but we're still all wrapped up in our grave clothes. We're still clinging to our sin. We're still clinging to those places of destruction and death in us that God is seeking to liberate us from. And just as Jesus, his last words in our gospel today are, unbind him and let him go free. Those are Jesus' words to us too. Be unbound and go free. Let go of those things you're clinging to that hold you to death and to sin and destruction. My power is with you, and you can do that, and you are called to unbind others and help them go free. So this week, embrace your sainthood. Embrace being a saint here on earth. Embrace your ability to know life and to bring love where you go. As you go to the polls, as you go home, as you go to work, as you interact with your neighbor, as you interact with those you love and those you despise. Remember God's vision in Isaiah of all nations coming together, of all peoples coming together and being united on God's mountain, fed by God, nourished by God, loved by God. Bring this command that we have as saints of God to love God with all our hearts, our minds, our souls, our bodies, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. Take that with you in every moment this week and seek to live it out. Be unbound and go free. Amen.